It's time for PaleoRadio, only on Secular Media Network.
You are now entering PaleoRadio.
Welcome to PaleoRadio with your hosts Jeremiah Bannister and Joe Elder.
What an amazing day it is to be alive, Paleocrats. I'm Swizzle Sticks, Jeremiah Bannister.
And I am Joe Elder.
I know, check out this amazing mustachio I've got, Joe.
Yeah, I love it. The little Raleigh fingers twist up.
I do, I have the little Raleigh fingers twist up. Bought some nice mustachio wax for that.
That is uber dapper.
That's how I go. So, you're listening to PaleoRadio, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Angela, not only for that introduction, but also for being on the phones today. If you would like to call in at any point, the number is 616-656-1680. One more time, it's 616-656-1680. And of course, we're also accompanied today by the woman that makes everything go real smoothly. And I cannot stress enough how important this is to be on radio, on a microphone. Joe knows this.
Oh, right? Yes.
We've been doing this for a minute or two, and it really helps to have somebody who's able to do the boards to make sure that the PSAs go out on time. The top of the hour hits just right at the right time, and that the music comes in.
Yes. And it's a very good thing. We do have a great constant professional here. Lauren, thank you for running the board. We appreciate that. And we appreciate the topics. We have such a good lineup.
I know. We're going to begin today with a post over at Rolling Stones having to do with Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! She was arrested for covering the Dakota Pipeline story. It's a story out of Rolling Stone. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, under the pretense of being a protester and not a journalist.
Yeah, she's not a journalist, Amy Goodman.
Yeah, very interesting. Probably one of the better ones we have in the entire country.
Right.
The next topic is going to be a Space.com article saying that the universe is 10 times bigger than we expected. Really interesting stuff there.
And then we're going to end everything off. And we've got a couple other topics that we might just kind of toss around a little bit. You know, Alex Jones calling Hillary a demon. That seemed kind of fun.
That's a verifiable fact, right?
Verifiable.
We know we can prove that.
Yeah, he has it on good authority from Bob Larson. So he's heard from people real close that she's just really possessed.
Some people are saying she's a demon.
And then there's a poll that came out just recently that says that only 6% of the United States now trusts the media, that it's gotten to a point where they're about as hated as elected officials.
Yeah.
So there's that. But our last topic, and this is important, we literally talk about stuff that a lot of other places don't, okay, including the pipeline here. But we're going to talk about Wikileaks. And
in great detail.
In great detail. I've literally just dived in face first, Joe, for the last week now. I think WikiLeaks is now at Podesta email 8.
Yeah.
So they've done 8 drops of massive dumps of this stuff, and some of it's, you know, I think I agree with them. It's kind of 60-40 on the stuff that's just neat to see, that you can, you know, find out the inner workings of this. But there's some pretty heinous stuff in here.
There is, and it has to be said that when we do this is not to say that we have to let everyone know that this is not the land of false dichotomies. And this is something that I've been trying to tag this the way that Hillary Clinton is trying to tag trumped up trickle-down economics. I want this to go somewhere. But I think that the land of false dichotomy says that if we look into these WikiLeaks emails, we're in some way endorsing Donald Trump, which isn't true. If we're looking into Donald Trump, we're in some way endorsing Hillary Clinton. That also is not true. We need to look at it from just get out of identity politics and idea politics. Is there things in there that are very immoral and wrong and unjust? Absolutely. We're going to cover them. That's how this works.
And we help to balance what we know is ridiculous when, after a week of coverage, network stations give 13 minutes, a whole 13, to discussing the WikiLeaks scandal, and about 190-something. It was a huge number of minutes given to talking about the Trump tapes. And you say, that is a grotesque imbalance of things. Right?
Yes,
if people are questioning, oh, well, you're talking about that, you must be for this candidate. Well, if that's the case, then it would seem as if the media is all for one candidate, too.
Yes.
And that seems a little strange. So we're going to talk about all of it. But listen, beginning with the pipeline, we had some listeners, actually, Joe, didn't we, that said that this is something that we should talk about.
Yeah, and something that we were covering. We wanted to wait until we saw everything go through. There's a whole entire story that's behind this, but we wanted it to play out a little bit further before we covered it, and now things are kind of coming to fruition.
Yeah, Matt Taibbi over at Rolling Stones has a piece called "Journalist Amy Goodman Shouldn't Be Arrested for Covering Dakota Pipeline Story." To the offending prosecutor, Lad Erickson, who is apparently a fan. So it's dedicated. This is the irony of it all. This is the irony, is that the prosecutor, right, this guy, Lad Erickson, while he was being interviewed about this, he brought up Taibbi and said he gets his news from him. That's one of the main guys he goes to get his news. And so Taibbi said, wow, my name shows up in this article. And when he read it, and when he saw it, he was actually with Amy Goodman.
Yes.
That's what he was doing. And so he's like, wrong guy to bring up.
Well, and very funny, when he mentions Lad Erickson, I have in my mind the picture of The Rock in old WWF where he's striking the guys and then he spits into his hand and does a little slap. Like that's right across the face, basically saying, okay, you've called my name and now you'll get my opinion and you're not going to like it.
So he begins by saying this. A little over a month ago, private security guards working on behalf of the Dakota Access Pipeline Company clashed with Native Americans. They were protesting the bulldozing of land on a Standing Rock Sioux tribal burial site in southern North Dakota. Guards sprayed protesters with pepper spray and unleashed attack dogs on the crowd. And I saw videos of that.
Yeah, blood in the dog's
including
mouth.
Kids.
Yeah.
Kids were there, and dogs are unleashed on them, running around biting. Democracy Now's subsequent special report about the incident went viral, with more than 14 million people viewing it on Facebook. Shortly thereafter, the Obama administration intervened, stopping pipeline construction on Army Corps land and asking the company to, quote, voluntarily pause all construction activity in the area.
Yes. So they just asked them to, please, we're just urging you, stop building it.
Don't do that.
Yeah. And was that, do you think that had something to do with Amy Goodman being on the ground there and reporting about it?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely it does.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And you were talking to me about this and saying, she goes on this land that a neighboring town says, hey, we're going to gobble up some of this territory. We're going to make access for this pipeline.
Yes.
And so she goes onto the land. But because the land is now gobbled up by this kind of eminent domain deal going on with property that is another nation's, she ends up getting a trespassing charge.
Yeah, that's neat. That's what she got brought in for, is trespassing.
That's really neat.
And
how it works.
And they were also talking about her being a protester. And that's what I think is the biggest thing, is they were saying because she was reporting from the side of most of the Native American tribes, when they were protesting about it, they were saying that she was not being a journalist, she was being a protester, which is funny because from the entire spec of media analysis on it, you had a lot more people that were reporting on CNN that there was just a few people protesting it, but they didn't go into any details about it. And in a way, it was conformity to be protesting for the pipeline to be built because they weren't getting any deeper into the story. So here's someone who actively engages. But the trespassing charge about land is funny. That the question is, whose property is it, is really what the whole entire thing is about. So trespassing on property is a definite claim to who owns it, which I think needs to be established before we can make these charges.
Yeah, it's a controversial thing going on there with that.
Absolutely.
Right. But I'm still taken back by the whole, there's a good debate there on Amy Goodman and the style of journalism that she's involved in, right? In media theory, there's like 4 different schools of thought on that or more. And she's kind of part of this cultural theory, right, where you are, as a journalist, you're also engaged proactively in pushing what you believe in, right? And so it's not just that you're reporting on facts. You are identifying what you believe to be injustices. And I don't mean to this as a smack or anything, but it's culturally Marxist, right? It's Marxist, in fact, even in its ideas. And to say you need to invest yourself if you believe this is an injustice. You can't, as a journalist, just simply write about it in a detached way. and that you have to be proactive and engaged. It's controversial, even within media theory.
But she doesn't ever have a monologue, and she doesn't ever write her own opinion. She only reports on what is said from the people that she's interviewing. So even if, like Democracy Now! As a show, it doesn't have a Bill O'Reilly no spin zone monologue at the end that says what we should do or how we can do it. By the people she chooses to bring on, she creates an angle, but that is more like older news theory, I think. That's almost Walter Cronkite-ish. Is we're going to interview people. I'm not going to say what I think, but depending on who I allow to interview is going to be the angle.
Yeah, and we also know that idea of the detached journalist is not real. I mean, that's what we're learning from Podesta emails. That's one of the things we're learning is that these journalists and these major, huge, the biggest institutions that control media are involved. They collude. And they've got preferences. They allow candidates to shape stories. They tee stories up for them. I mean, these are quotes from that. And also the lack of trust because people say, oh, they're in cahoots.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people don't know. I don't think they know good journalism if they see it anymore anyway. Where it was a hard thing to recognize even when journalism was better. Now it's almost gone. And it's no disrespect to the people that are actively getting involved in it and doing it now today. But the market's been flooded in a whole different way. And I don't know, to me it brings up some media theory questions, as in if most people are getting on Facebook for their news and they're basically in their own bubble of information, and they're not going to CNN, MSNBC anymore to get their news. They get it from each other. When we talk about the media being bad, are we really talking about just ourselves? Are we more involved in it now than we've ever been? Where communication theory used to always talk about a transcending line of thought, how it goes down
opinion
from thought
makers and your receivers.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
But now you have a lot of receivers that can turn that right around and become an opinion maker in real time, just like that.
Yeah.
And just the fact that fans have such access to stars on things like Twitter, that's a whole different ballgame of how media and communications has been cascaded down. So it's a new thing. And when we say we're sick of media, I think a lot of it has to do with we're sick of the echo chamber on social media more than the actual news. Because I personally don't know many people that truly watch the amount of news they say they watch.
Yeah, a lot of it does come from their social network.
Absolutely.
Right? So they're in their own little bubbles, and they're very dissatisfied with the silo. You know, the article ends here. It says, so not only was Amy Goodman doing journalism when she was at the protest, the only kind of journalist who would even be there, almost by definition, would have to be one like Amy Goodman. And he says that the prosecutor who arrests a reporter because he doesn't think she's balanced enough is basically telling future reporters what needs to be in their stories to avoid arrest. This is totally improper and un-American. We have enough meddling editors in this country without also recruiting government officials to the job.
That's right. Again, Rolling Stone article, Matt Taibbi, journalist Amy Goodman shouldn't be arrested for covering Dakota Pipeline story. Stick around, guys. We're talking about space.
Love Paleo Radio? Join the club. Support our work by visiting patreon.com/Paleo Radio today.
Back to Eagle and Dragon.
Welcome back to Paleo Radio, 95.3 FM, 1680 AM. Phone number here is 616-656-1680. You can always call in and join the conversation. Talk about space, Jeremiah.
Yeah, talk about space. You know, this was an interesting article. It was one of those things where you kind of sit there and you read it and you go, you know, I've wondered that. I've wondered if this might be the case.
Yeah.
You know, and there's people out there who said, well, we anticipated that this would be. But finding something out and discovering it and creating the tools necessary to do it, to see further out into the universe, is amazing.
Isn't it amazing stuff?
Amazing.
So this is from space.com. The universe has 10 times more galaxies than scientists thought. This is by Hanneke Whitering. I didn't slaughter that.
Yeah, and everybody listen.
Weitering, my friends.
And the first name is Hanneke, EKE. And listen, this is the trials and terrors of being a live radio personality. It's true.
That's right.
How many names in our career, Joe, have we had to face?
A good many. But the other thing too is we face it being very humble, and we would love to be corrected. If you know the correct answer, please let us know. But going into the article, an international team of astronomers used deep space images and other data from the Hubble Space Telescope to create a 3D map of the known universe, which contains about 100 to 200 billion galaxies. In particular, they relied on Hubble's deep field images, which revealed the most distant galaxies ever seen with the telescope, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
On top of that, then researchers incorporated new mathematical models to calculate where other galaxies that have not yet been imaged by a telescope might exist. For the numbers to add up, the universe needs at least 10 times more galaxies than those already known to exist. But these unknown galaxies are likely either too faint or too far away to be seen with today's telescopes. So basically, the Hubble Space Telescope created a new mathematical model to follow based on the numbers of galaxies it found in deep space. We did not identify that the universe is 10 times bigger by fact. We just said, for our mathematical models to add up with the new information that Hubble has given us, we know that the number is 10 times bigger than we thought. Mm-hmm. So we have a way where math is leading the science here, which usually they do tend to collude.
And people, when they hear this, there's a tendency probably, and maybe, that some people think new stars. Or a new planet somewhere. You're like, dude, galaxies.
New galaxies, as in like new Milky Ways. The entire galaxy. Almost every star you've ever seen in the sky is from one galaxy. We do see distant galaxies and think they're stars because of how far away we are right now. But the truth is, a lot of times we're seeing only the stars in our solar system, or the stars within our galaxy, which is amazing. And to think how much bigger that is it is really unfathomable.
Yeah, the most distant galaxies ever seen with a telescope.
Yeah, the most distant galaxies ever seen. So this is from Christopher Consolence, a professor of astrophysics at the University of Nottingham in UK, who said, "It boggles the mind that over 90% of the galaxies in the universe have yet to be studied. Who knows what interest properties we will find when we observe these galaxies with the next generation of telescopes," which is what I'm really excited about as well.
That's the whole thing. You get a peek into something and realize it's much bigger. And it kind of reminded me of the Cosmos episode where Neil deGrasse Tyson is talking about the arrow being shot at the top of a wall. And that the arrow will then land in a wall, you walk up and see how far it can go. The question then is, can you stand atop that and shoot even further? Mm-hmm. Is there something beyond that wall that currently you think is the edge of all things?
Yes.
And this is demonstrated that, hey, in fact, with galaxies, we're much bigger than we ever imagined.
Yes, way bigger.
Way bigger.
And space and time, this is just worth mentioning, that is, I think, one of the most awesome facts about space is that, yes, space and time are related. So, for instance, if there's a star 60 million light years or 600 million light years away from us, they would be seeing dinosaurs with the light coming to them. So our actions and our movements are based and set in time, which is just, I know we're getting into like the trip zone. This is Twilight Zone stuff, but it's true that stars that are that far away, it takes that long for the light to get there, which means that's how many years behind they literally are from seeing what's going on. If they were about 70 to 80, they could be possibly seeing explosions close enough. They could be in better telescopes. They could be seeing explosions from World War II going on. Wow. That's a mind-boggling thing, but it's true. And to think about more galaxies, even bigger, more space, more time, more differences, it really does melt the mind.
It really does. Lauren here. And something my friend she brought up to me quite a long time ago to think about our perspective in this. Like all the fish and creatures under the ocean, like they know the ocean and they know up is up. They see the big sky to them, where things end, and that's all they know. They have no idea what's going on over here. Us right now, we're just in an ocean in a pond. We look up, we see the bit of sky that we get to see. But there's, like you said, it's really unfathomable.
Yeah,
we just have no idea.
It's so big. And this is one thing that I have to mention with Neil deGrasse Tyson that I love is when we talk about extraterrestrial life, and I'm not talking about little green men floating, we're talking about different organic life that's on different planets. The idea that there isn't any organic life outside of on Earth with that much possibility is just simply not true.
In much older galaxies.
In much older galaxies,
right.
too, with in different physics to each planet. For instance, with us, just our neighbor, one of our neighbors next door, Venus, has a surface temperature of 900 degrees Celsius. I mean, we're talking cooking. That's runaway greenhouse gas. Not the right. It's within the Goldilocks zone for life, but it just had a few issues. You have Earth that has a perfect setting, and when you're rolling the die that many times with galaxies and different planets with different stars or around different stars, and billions of stars in one galaxy, you know that it's happening.
And this comes out at a time when people are talking about little green men, like the the situation with Blink-182's lead singer.
Yeah, he was asking about the sensitive people, right?
The sensitive stuff, and whether or not it's people who come down to check out stuff, or if they're and that they have actually they want to reveal to us a certain kind of energy source and power that we can use, but we can't have violence or war. And so when you look at it and you say, hey, it bolsters Blink-182's case. It's a big universe. You never know. Maybe Blink-182 guy is onto something.
Now the question would be how interested something would be in watching us, right? But not to get too far divergent, going back into the topic, looking far out into deep space also means looking back into time, like I was talking about, because light takes a long time to travel across cosmic distances. During the study, Consolence and his team took a look at the universe and up to 13 billion light years away. Looking this far allowed researchers to see partial snapshots of the evolution of the universe since 13 billion years ago, or less than 100 million years after the Big Bang.
And that's Christopher Consolence, a professor of astrophysics at the University of Nottingham in the UK, and he's the guy who led the study.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's talking about parts of the universe 13 billion light years away. That's pretty darn far.
Isn't that unbelievable?
That's a long, not far, time. Like, it is far, but it's saying, man, look at the time difference here.
Yeah.
Look at what's going on with that.
And a new evolution of the universe is something that they saw as well. They discovered that the early universe contained even more galaxies than it does today. Those distant galaxies were small and faint dwarf galaxies that they had found. And as the universe evolved, such galaxies merged together and formed larger ones. So that's actually, there were more galaxies earlier on than there are today, in huge, huge star clusters, which is just impressive.
And that they eventually came together.
Which, this is something like when Darwin looked at evolution and made some claims about, okay, if this is true, we should see certain skeletal bodies that look the same and have small variations, right? And then we look back and it's confirmed. It's the same concept where astrophysics and astrophysicists have been saying for a long time, it's very likely that we had more hot, condensed galaxies early on that stretched over time as the universe expanded. And so we would see that. But it was hard to confirm. Now we actually have that evidence.
Yeah, and saying, 120 billion galaxies only within the observable universe?
Yeah.
It's astronomical, Joe.
Yeah, astronomical.
It's astronomical.
Lovely.
Yeah, but 90% of these galaxies are too far and faint, and scientists can only infer their existence.
Yes.
Now I went over to skyandtelescope.com, and I can't verify too much about that. I'm I hope I'm not falling into some trap here. But they said, hardly a surprise. We already knew galaxies grow in part by merging, so there will be more little galaxies in the past and fewer bigger galaxies in the present day. This picture isn't news. It's just an observational confirmation of the old picture. All these observations increasingly match the picture that's predicted by the current overarching model of cosmology, known in the trade as the Lambda CDM.
Yes.
And so you say, that's a good thing, though. That's a good thing to say, hey, we have an overarching model of cosmology, and it seems that we can make these predictions,
yes.
And then we're building stuff that's, in fact, confirming evidentially what we're predicting.
I know when I say this now, people kind of laugh at me because it is 2 years away. But 2 years from now, in October, is the set launch for the James Webb Telescope, which is going to be something that just puts Hubble to shame. The technology on that beast is crazy. And the James Webb Telescope, this is from Wikipedia talking about it, but it will offer unprecedented resolution and sensitivity from long wavelength, which is orange and red visible light, through near infrared to the mid-infrared, and is a successor to the instrument of the Hubble Space Telescope and the Spitzer Space Telescope. While Hubble has a 2.4-meter mirror, the James Webb features a larger and segmented 6.5-meter window, which means it has the capacity to take in more light. So we're talking about some amazing discoveries in the next 10 to 15 years in terms of planets, galaxies, and different things that we can see.
I like this. So what's new from this study? We get a better grasp on those early unseen dwarf galaxies, the model's building blocks for today's galaxies. That's an achievement. Dwarf galaxies are pretty darn elusive. The Lambda CDM model predicts many more of them than easily meet the eye, and astronomers have been finding the missing ones only slowly. Few doubt that they're out there in one form or another. Now we have a more solid handle on them.
Exactly. And just like I said, the predictions were there, but you need the evidence to absolutely confirm it. And you can only say, we can speculate, but the math is there until you have confirmation, and we do now. So another building block falls into place, and it falls right into the line of the theory of how planets and evolution forms through the universe and how planets evolve and how solar systems evolve. And it's a good day for science and space.
Speaking of building blocks falling into place, when we get back here after this break, we're going to be talking about the Podesta emails.
Yes.
And it's going to be a really, really big one.
It is.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to delve into it. And as I said earlier, some of it's meh, some of it's, hey, that's kind of neat, and some of it's like, whoa, that doesn't look very good.
Yes, and please keep an open mind to it, and if you want to call in, 616-656-1680. Stick around. Paleo Radio will return.
Now back to Joe and Jeremiah.
You got to make sure to follow us on Twitter. It's always a good time. You can follow the show at Paleo Radio Show. You can follow me at Paleocrat, Paleocrat.
And you can follow me at Joe Elder Comedy.
Yeah, and listen, we're active on there.
Oh, yeah.
We have a hootin' hollering good time. And for the last week, Joe, actually, I sent you a text message yesterday. I said, man, I have literally been entrenched on Twitter.
Yes,
for about a week.
Locked in.
I've been locked in, my man.
Yeah.
And I follow some people who cutting edge. Let's just put it that way. They're cutting edge individuals, right? With access
nice
to lots of sensitive stuff, it seems, and they're always releasing these things and releasing videos that you've never seen before, or hit pieces and stuff, and releasing FOIA documents. And so I'm kind of always trying to be at that level of things going on. But these WikiLeaks, man, this is a real deal. And it's gotten to a real crazy place. I mean, just in the last 24 hours, the United States has said, hey, we're going to go ahead and do something really interesting. In fact, we're going to have the CIA get involved in cyber stuff. And I've heard that wouldn't even be how it would work if it was actually a cyber war. That it would be NSA. It wouldn't even be, there'd be a different group. It wouldn't be the CIA per se that'd be involved in that. But that was, hey, that's out there.
At this point, right? The beast is so big, who knows who would be involved in what.
Right.
And the thing about the WikiLeaks revelations is it's not only, it's like you said, some of it's a little tabloidish. I think some of the things WikiLeaks released were just showing people how the everyday system works, and some of the chatty Cathy stuff that was going on between people like, Chelsea Clinton is such a snobby little brat, that sort of thing. But I also think that the Podesta emails and what they show is almost it's not even almost, at a disgusting level how policy is made well before the practice is carried out. And it's not just people sitting in rooms making decisions that are like, what can we do here? And it's not just generally how things work. It's huge financial institutions that give you a list of candidates that you can pick from for cabinet positions, and you pick every one of them.
Every one of them.
And that's some awful stuff.
That's very, very, very bad. And in fact, here's the messed up thing. You got the conspiracy world out there. And I mentioned this, we were talking about yesterday. I said, conspiracy world, right? Alex Jones. Take him as an example. That cat has like a probably 97 to 3% fail rate, if he's honest with himself.
Yeah.
right? I mean,
his misses are large.
His misses are large, but because his pool accepts the fringiest things, including whistleblowers, people who hack into things and release the information, every once in a while you're going to get this kind of thing that's like, hey, haven't they been saying that the financial sector made that decision? Isn't that part of his Endgame video from years ago where he talks about that?
And it shows the connection.
The connection, and then you kind of go, that's weird.
Well, and they have a term for that. They call that blind squirrel finding a nut. Right? Which they do. Blind squirrels do have a way of finding nuts every now and then.
And it doesn't confirm the overarching narrative, right? Sticking with that idea of an overarching storyline or narrative or theory. It doesn't actually play into that and say, oh, well, look, it must be true also what I then say about chemtrails.
Yes, exactly. Those lines don't come together.
Right. Or all of it. But you have this piece, right? It's called Roaming Charges. A WikiLeaks is a terrible thing to waste. It's by Jeffrey St. Clair over at Counterpunch. And he says, in total, the Podesta files provide the most intimate and unadulterated look at how politics really works in late capitalist America since the release of the Nixon tapes. And I agree with this.
Yeah, I do too.
And you've been listening to the Nixon tapes.
I've been listening to the Nixon tapes because I got on to watching on Netflix. This is free plug for them. Netflix, the show The 70s, which is just kind of a documentary of the history of what went on all through the decade of the 70s. And in it, they got going on Nixon tapes and his White House tapes. And it would blow your mind what was being talked about even then. And you think about now where everything's been fast forward and the technology is much wider, and I don't think that policy making has gotten much better. And so it's kind of scary if you think the breadth that people would use their power, even considering what was happening that long ago.
And with this right here, I think that it's true. A lot of these emails are mundane, right?
Sure.
They're petty and banal political machine. Like that's the description from the article. It says, instead of shaping a campaign around an ideological movement, the Clinton operation resembles the packaging of a political mutual fund, a balanced, low-risk portfolio of financial interests, captive NGOs, and dependent demographic sectors. The red meat in the emails can be found in the disclosures of the internal rivalries, self-aggrandizement, and sycophancy of hired guns and consultants, especially as they gravitate toward Podesta. And Podesta's a weirdo.
Yeah,
I mean, let's just lay that on the table, man.
He's a cuckoo bird.
He's a cuckoo bird. Him and Blumenthal both. Mm-hmm. Just bona fide weirdos.
And have a very questionable amount of power, especially Blumenthal. Like, this is an unelected guy who's involved in everything going on. Very, very awful stuff. So, and that's true. Like the article said, that it's a lot in the self-aggrandizement and all of that as well. But the three prevailing obsessions of the Podesta emails, raising money, containing the contamination of the Clinton Foundation, and screwing Bernie Sanders, there's barely any hint of anxiety over Trump. In fact, they relish in every false move, almost as if faltering steps had been pre-visualized, if not orchestrated.
And that right there plays into the hands of people who say, and in fact, a lot of the emails play into the hands of people who say that Trump was propped up by Hillary and the media in order, because they were convinced, in fact, that was the easiest person for her to run against, and that she, in the emails, Podesta is of the persuasion that he's kind of nervous about just how much Hillary's banking on the idea that she's only going to face Trump way ahead of him winning. Yeah. And that he said it was worrying him that this is a real problem. She seems like all of her eggs are in this basket. Yeah. For some reason, and he didn't know why that was.
And I also think though too that internal polling is much more accurate than external polling, which is the information that they get from their different demographics is a much more accurate view. So I think they foresaw it, like a lot of people did. I mean, I don't think that if there's any group of or any campaign that would be able to predict something like that, it would be Hillary Clinton's campaign.
So then what's up with the phone call? You remember the phone call from Bill the night before the announcement?
I don't.
Yeah, that was in the beginning. That was the big question. People were like, well, why would you and Bill have a phone conversation the night before you came down the escalator?
Yeah. Probably congratulations.
Congratulations on the decision you're going to make tomorrow.
Yeah, congratulations on running again
like that. Tomorrow. But there's all these different topics that come up, and I wrote down some of them, right? Terror, for example, where there's a quote in there that says, there will be multiple aggressive attacks, including on American and European soil, that are programmed as inevitable under the current policies. Mm-hmm. So it's an admission that, hey, given the current policies that we have, and that's at Obama. Mm-hmm. That's at Obama saying, with this right here, with the current policies, there will be multiple aggressive attacks, including on American and European soil, and that this is admitted and even programmed as an inevitable thing within these policies. And I said, that's kind of a little dark.
Yeah.
That's not a good... People aren't admitting that from the Senate floor.
No. Right? No, that's true.
Obama, Ernst isn't going up there going, yes, part of this is just the basic admission that, yes, we're going to have an increased amount of aggressive terrorist attacks.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah.
But I think that was a conversation, too, and I'm not meaning to pass the buck, but we know that with FOIAing George Bush's emails, that was constant conversation, too, where they said, look, hey, there's going to be embassies that get burned down. What are you going to do? We're not going to go fight those. And they did say that, and which makes it a kind of an ironic thing too that Benghazi was such a big hullabaloo.
What about open trade, open borders, where she in her transcript, in her speeches, which have been revealed, and so have the IRS conversation that went on, that the audit, that's an interesting thing. I'll have some quotes from that in a minute, but open trade, open borders.
Yeah.
And where Jay Sullivan, the email belonging to Jay Sullivan at the campaign, talks about doctoring speeches when they release them so that it doesn't make her look so cozy.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit there and I say, Bernie, you were right, bro. Bernie was right. Bernie's people were totally right on that score.
Yeah.
Go read the emails, right? Bernie should be talking about those things, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. And this is one that was really obvious. Just considering Bernie is going into the article. Significantly, the email dump also proves what many of us have long suspected: that there are no walls separating the Clinton campaign, its foundation and super PACs, and the DNC itself. Those supposedly distinct entities are, in fact, all part of one vast, interconnected organization, a syndicate, if you will, that has deftly evaded campaign finance laws created by Democrats and rigged its own primary process to ensure a preordained winner. Mm-hmm. Which I think people kind of knew that in the first place. Yeah, but now you can see correspondence with New York Times, Politico, AP, CNN, Univision. They tee up stories. They say that the campaign, if they go to their friendlies, they have a term for them, if they go to their friendlies, that they allow them to shape the message. CNN town hall questions were leaked. By Donna Brazile, by the way. Yes, totally. That's bad. Even Jake Tapper said, whoa, this is not a good thing. Discussions with super PACs, totally against the law. Discussions with super PACs. DNC helping with dirt on Bernie, helping to shape Hillary's message. Dude, they had a lineup of all the major newspapers and the stories that were going out, and the writers writing them and saying, hey, is this okay? Should I use this term? I want to be able to emphasize and really pump you up a little bit. I'm just like, this is not journalism. No. And we've also known this too, and it's just like we were talking about even in the space article, something that you know, but when it's confirmed, it's a different story. It's now confirmed that there's a lot of people that have a very cozy, soft relationship with access, but we also have known for a long time that if you don't give the presidential elect the info beforehand, that you don't get the interviews. We know that they don't go in to do like something like Britain's Question Time, right? Mm-hmm. Everything that goes out there is pre-given. Well, and this is on a much smaller scale, but it's almost like Morning Joe with old Donald Trump, where no questions about military Mika, or I can't remember what it was. No questions about the wall. When they were talking before they go on the air, right? Well, it's obvious that there's conversations.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And that I think it's just rampant across the board, and it makes it so media kind of does deliver that droviness reporting, because some of that stuff is written by, in fact, the politicians themselves or their camp. That's scary.
That's the whole
scary
point.
Stuff.
It's totally scary that what you read. I mean, people are in a place where they don't really trust anymore what they read in the paper or what they see on the news. They don't trust it. And to see this stuff, it's kind of like the galaxies, where you knew it was true. Like, you could say, we believe this to be the case. We have enough evidence already at hand to make projections and to make a prediction that this is what's happening. It's the same thing here. People have for decades now said this is a fraud. What the mainstream media is doing is a complete fraud. And now they have the evidence This substantiates it, and they say, see, I've been saying it for years. This isn't good for the United States.
No, it's not. And when we get back into it, we're going to discuss Obama's links, too, and his cabinet members, and Citigroup suggestions of who they're going to be.
For speeches, contact PaleoRadio@gmail.com.
You love to hate 'em, you hate to love 'em. You just can't get enough of 'em, you sick freaks. Paleo Radio's on the air.
Welcome back. Paleo Radio, 95.3 FM, 1680 AM. Again, if you guys want to call and join our conversation, 616-656-1680. This is another article about the Wikileaks scandal that I think is worth mentioning.
Yeah.
This is from the New Republic. The most important Wikileaks revelation isn't about Hillary Clinton. What John Podesta's emails from 2008 reveal about the way power works in the Democratic Party, and I would say in all parties in general. I think hopefully Wikileaks will do some work and show that this is just a rampant thing, which I believe it is. This is by David Dayan. The most important revelation in the Wikileaks dump of John Podesta's emails has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton. The messages go all the way back to 2008, when Podesta served as co-chair of President-elect Barack Obama's transition team. And a month before the election, the key staffing for the future administration was also entirely in place, revealing that some of the most crucial decisions an administration can make revealing that some of the most crucial decisions an administration can make occur well before the vote has been cast. Now, this is really some crazy stuff.
This is terrible.
Just get prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared, please.
Yeah.
Michael Froman, who is now the U.S. Trade Representative, but at the time was an executive at Citigroup, wrote an email to Podesta on October 6, 2008, which is a month before the election, or before the vote, with the subject lists. Froman used a Citigroup email address. He attached 3 documents, a list of women for top administration jobs, a list of non-white candidates, and a sample outline of 31 cabinet-level positions who would fill them. Quote, the list will continue to grow, Froman wrote to Podesta, but these are the names and dates that seem to be coming up as recommended by various sources in senior levels.
Yeah.
So, I mean... So it was an email of lists saying, okay, here's your list. Now here's where it becomes a fact. The cabinet list ended up being almost entirely on the money. It correctly identified Eric Holder for the Justice Department, Janet Napolitano for Homeland Security, Robert Gates for Defense, Rahm Emanuel for Chief of Staff, Peter Orzog for the Office of Management and Budget, Arne Duncan for Education, Eric Shisinski for Veterans Affairs, Kathleen Sibilis for Health and Human Services, Melody Barnes for the Domestic Policy Council, and more. For the Treasury, 3 possibilities were on the list: Robert Rubin, Larry Summers, and Timothy Geithner.
Yeah, that guy should go buy a lottery ticket because he's really good at guessing.
Wow.
He's really good at predicting. He should get into like fantasy football. I bet he'd make a lot of money.
Well, and that's where the rubber meets the road.
Because it's all luck, right?
Well, and that's the thing. That's where rubber meets the road. It's one thing for Citigroup to show coziness by sending an email saying this is who we think you should pick, because that already is disgusting, right? But when you add this, the fact that those were the people on the list and those were the people selected, this was a month before Obama got into office. And the largest financial institution that got the most money back from the bank bailout sent the email list of everybody that was going to be in the cabinet, and it was everybody that they sent. That's wild.
Yeah, the odds.
That's wild.
We need some statisticians. What are the odds of that?
Yes.
Of that guy. He just nailed it. Man, dude, that's crazy. This guy's like a magician. He can just see the future. I mean, he should be in one of those boxes like the movie Big.
Yes.
Remember that movie?
Yes.
The Tom Hanks movie? What was the Shazam guy or whatever it was on the inside?
I can't
Zoltar. Zoltan or Zoltar or something like that.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, that's him.
Mm-hmm.
That's this guy. He literally has the accuracy of a magic man.
Well, can you believe that, too? The amount of people that he hit on the nose.
That's what I'm saying.
And it wasn't like he just guessed. It was, here's the suggestions from the higher ups of Citigroup as to who this is going to be. And we also have this link with Hillary Clinton and what she told the donors in those speeches, the speeches in Wall Street. Give me a break, man. Bernie bros, please be angry that those are released now.
Read them.
And you should be reading them.
Yes.
That was the whole kicker, right? Like not even 2 months ago, the fact that no one cared about her Wall Street speeches. Now you have them. They're in your hands.
And you can read
them.
Yes.
You can read them. And I'm sorry to be that way, but think about this. how fast people have gathered around their wagons and how much we've tribed up, that something that 2 months ago was one of the biggest concerns of an entire group, and a legitimate one
for good reason,
is now no longer a concern because you have what you want, you know what's in there, and you won't read it. For instance, her saying, I'm going to sound like I'm against you guys, but trust me, I'm not.
Yeah, I have a public policy and a private policy.
Yes.
That I have that, right? I mean, you can just go on and on and on with this and say, you know, I've tweeted out to Bernie Sanders, and there's a bazillion people who do, right? He probably gets trolled by a gazillion people. But I said, listen, these are there. You were right. You were right about the party colluding with her candidacy. You were right about the media colluding with her campaign. You were right about the speeches. You're right about the public and private position. You're right about the terrible lack of judgment. You're right about that.
Yes.
And all of those people, I watched a video where Bernie was in front of tons of people, and he went up and said, you know, he was stumping for Hillary. And this crowd, this massive arena of people literally are booing him. Mm-hmm. Booing and yelling at him and saying, why? Why? It's all there now. You can see it. You were played, man.
And I think it's because people know it's about it's a morality vote. The reason why those people have left the camp of support once he went with Clinton is because it was a morality thing why they opposed her in the first place. That doesn't change because some things around her change. If you have moral reasons for not making a choice on somebody, you have to be convinced more than, hey, there's another guy that's a bad moral choice too. I mean, abstaining's even in some cases is better, and I know some people say you shouldn't. I believe that you should do whatever you think you should do. Mm-hmm. It's a random notion, a very wild concept that I have where I think you should vote for who you should vote for, and I'm not going to block you or unfriend you or say you're an a-hole for whoever you vote for or if you don't vote at all.
Yeah, and here's a PaleoRadio PSA. We do this every once in a while, not so much on the show, but on social media. Go register and vote if you want.
Absolutely.
You should do that. And a lot of states have already passed that line.
We already have.
We already have. But if people want to go out and vote, and you're listening to this all across the country, if you want to go out and vote, make sure that you register. And no matter what you are, if you're liberal, if you're conservative, Republican, Democrat, Green, no matter independent, whatever you are, libertarian, doesn't matter what you are, go out and take part. Because there's a lot going on. More to do with this email stuff. You got Obama being framed as a coke-abusing Muslim in 2008. That's true.
Yes.
That's what they framed him as in these emails.
Yes.
You have the eerie stuff, right? And this is eerie. I mentioned it before the show. I said you've got an email where Podesta's joking, and this is the article, joking about a fundraiser on Martha's Vineyard. John Podesta says, "I didn't think wet works meant pool parties at the vineyard." Okay, this was days before Scalia was found dead by a pool near Martha's Vineyard. Mm-hmm. And wet works, for people who don't know, right? That's a KGB term?
Yeah, I don't know.
For often somebody. You have ISIS, and Julian Assange says this, and this is where the gold diggers, they're going to have to find this stuff, the people mining it. But he says, weapons flow going into Syria, pushed by Hillary Clinton into jihadist possession within Syria, including ISIS. That's there in those emails.
Sure it is.
And they've already admitted that they have to try to utilize more traditional assets that they've got, including Qatar and Saudi Arabia, who they admit are funding ISIS.
Yeah.
And those are huge donors, by the way, to her campaign.
Yeah.
So this stuff, is from their emails. We're not reading Alex
emails.
Jones.
That's right.
Right? We're reading these emails and saying, wow, what a conversation to have.
Yeah, it is. And there's tons of stuff going on in these emails. And a lot of it, like you said, a lot of it was the Chatty Cathy stuff about policy and people fighting and scrabbling for different positions around Hillary Clinton. But it shows that there's obvious pay for play going on. And again, these are buzzwords that when people hear them, they have natural defenses to. Listen to what happened, not the term pay for play. The fact that it was. It's not even a question. It is an unquestionable fact that they were taking donations and putting people in higher positions based on donations. Rajiv Fernando in Chicago, look up the name. That's a man who donates $1 million to the Clinton campaign and ends up in a high position of power in a cabinet he doesn't belong in with no political experience and not voted in. How'd that happen? We know how that happens. The emails show. It's arranged.
The emails show this stuff. It shows that during one of her speeches for hire, Hillary promised Wall Street tycoons that she would block marijuana legalization.
Yes,
and it was
saying
real
it was
short.
It would be bad for the tobacco company.
Even if it made money. If it made money. You have the emails. And again, the article. When served with subpoena for records on Benghazi, a seriously agitated Robbie Mook asks, we're not releasing everything, right? Among the things the Clinton damage control team must deal with, quote, Tony Rodham hustling gold mining deals in Haiti, end quote.
Yeah.
And listen, I said this in private conversation with you, with Nathan and others, when they're like, well, but the platform, Bernie changed the platform. The platform is discussed in this, and they call it throwing them a bone, and they said that it will make them feel as if they win, in scare quotes, that it will make Bernie people feel as though they won, when in fact they didn't get anything at all. And I've been saying that since that happened, and people were like, oh no, but it's the platform, it's the platform.
The platform is garbage.
It's a fraud.
Yeah, it is well documented that presidents, or when they're running to the position of president, that they play around with their platform and don't follow through. It's to get as many people. It's to be as wide and as vague as it possibly can be, to be as inclusive as it can be, with no general purpose or outcome behind it. That's how platforms work. So this whole idea of paid women's leave and stuff like that, I mean, I'm sorry, folks, but dream on. You think Hillary Clinton is going to do that? Really? I don't. I personally don't. I don't think half of those concessions are going to happen.
So much of this. And this is, I mean, look, in reality, there is a point to saying that a lot of this stuff, in fact, more than half of it, is just seeing behind the curtain, right? Just seeing what life is like, even the mundane, the everyday, ordinary things. And what you see, again, just like the Galaxy segment that we did earlier in this program, you see, wow, that's really how this stuff works.
Yes.
That's really the conversations they have. This is the last quote I'll take from this. It talks about ISIS. Here's from an email. Quote, while this paramilitary operation is moving forward, we need to use our diplomatic and more traditional intelligence assets to bring pressure on the governments of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, which are providing clandestine financial and logistical support to ISIS and other radical Sunni groups in the region. Mm-hmm. This needs to be central to our debate on how to deal with ISIS. These people are fraudsters. They're schemesters and liars. Mm-hmm. And behind closed doors, when they talk to each other, this is how they talk.
Yes.
And you can see it for yourself. Go and look. Go and read it. Read the transcripts. Read the emails. Enjoy yourself. Have fun.
Well, and it's also
it's all there.
It also is to say too that we knew there was a lot of things going on, especially with involvement with ISIS and how those who's supplying it, and especially 9/11 and what came out with Saudi Arabia's involvement with funding a lot of that, and the fact that Obama has blocked people from the United States from being able to sue them, which I know this sounds bad, and I know I probably will get scuffed for it, but I agree with, because can you imagine if we were to be sued by the country of Iraq and the citizens of Iraq for the actions of the U.S.?
It'd be crazy. And listen, if you want to challenge Joe on that, send it to PaleoRadio@gmail.com.
Yes. And there's the music, guys. The end of the show.
Big fat bummer every stinking time.
Happens so fast. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow us on Twitter, Paleo Radio Show, and you can follow us on Facebook at Paleo Radio.
We absolutely love doing this, everybody. Make sure to check out our Patreon at Paleo Radio. If you love the show, make sure to support us. We love doing what we do.
And again, there's going to be a humongous content upload this week, guys. Get ready for 3 or 4 episodes. It's going to be great on Spreaker. We will see you next week. We love you all. Have a good day.
Paleo Radio, exclusively with Secular Media Group.